faces and so many old faces and so many not so old faces as well.
Can you just have a look if he's on?
My name is Oladipo. I'm the CEO at the Africa Center, so I just want to say a few words and welcome to the center.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I just have a show of hands for who is coming here for the first time? Oh, wow.
At this venue.
This venue.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, welcome home. And who has been to the Old Africa Center, or the stalwarts of the Old Africa Center? Okay,
Covent Garden.
Covent Garden, welcome back home to you guys. It's really lovely to see you. You're still home. You still got the spirit of the Old Africa Center in a slightly newer and different place. And one of the things that we're really keen to do to establish and ensure the continuation of that spirit is to do things like this. This year, the Africa Center is 60 years old. Was there anyone here who was there in 1964? I ask this question every time we have an event, and at 4 events now, some Alake put their hand up, that they were at the Africa Center in 1964 as students back in the 60s. So that's really great to know. But to everyone who was not here in 1964 or 74, 84, welcome to the Africa Center. The mission of the Africa Center remains as it was back in 1964, even though the context has changed. It's a place to educate, it's a place to connect people, and it's a place to advocate for and on behalf of Africa and people of African descent. And we do that through different ways, and through arts and culture, through thought leadership, education, community. All the things that we're doing today, is what the Africa Center is all about centering African excellence in everything that we do. So when I happened across Kene telling the world about this book, I thought it should only be launched in one place, and that's here, because that's what the Africa Center is meant to be and is all about. I could tell that it was a passion project, but it was also a very deeply thought through project as well, and theatre is very much at the heart of who we are as a people. The performance is very key to how we express ourselves and how we keep our culture going. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Africa Center for the work that you have done in this with this book, and I really look forward to the conversation that we are having tonight. And for everyone who is here for the first time, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be the last time that you will be here. Now that we know who you are, we'll be dragging you back for everything all the time. Please do keep supporting the Africa Center. I have to keep stressing this, because people tend to forget, because everything looks nice and shiny on the outside. We forget that this is actually still a charity. We don't receive any government funding at this point in time. So we do really still need your support on an ongoing basis, which you can do in different ways, either by becoming a friend of the Africa Center, having events such as this here, telling your friends and colleagues about the Africa Center to have their events here, getting organizations you're affiliated to sponsor activities or events. Just give them my details and I'll sort them out. Thank you. And of course, you can just come here just to hang out. That's another thing that the Africa Center is great for. Just bring your friends. The restaurants are absolutely fantastic. We've all had a sample of the bar. That's always fantastic as well. And it's just a great place to be, even if I say so myself. So please, once again, welcome to the Africa Center, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olu. I do really think that we need to come here a lot more. We need to do a lot more here. So thank you so much for the work you're doing here at the African Center. When you asked me if I could come and launch a book here, I was really honored. And so it's a great honor to come and launch this book here. It's a book, passionate project. Took a long time. So by way of introduction, my name is Kene. I'm Professor of Creative Education and Head of London College of Communication. And I've got quite a few people here. I'm going to let them quickly introduce themselves. These are some of the contributors to this book. There are 42 chapters and introduction. in this book. So it's quite a big book. And I've got also on the screen two of our contributors there. So maybe we start from the screen with Tiziana. So this project, I'll come to that later. But yeah, Tiziana, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Is it me?
Can you hear us?
I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
We can hear you, but not fantastically.
Oh, okay. So just introductions quickly, your name and what you do. I could do the introductions.
Do you want us to introduce ourselves?
Yes, Tiziana.
Yes, fantastic. Yes, sorry. Hello, everyone. I'm Tiziana Morosetti. I'm a lecturer in theatre and performance at Goldsmiths, University of London. And yeah, I'm very excited for this book launch, and it's very well deserved. I collaborated on the project, and it's a great book, so I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tiziana, in addition to contributing to the book, also worked directly with me on the book as a postdoctoral researcher, helping to get the book moving when it felt stuck for me. Gibson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gibson Cima. I'm an assistant professor of theater history at Northern Illinois University, which is about an hour west of Chicago. So you join me here in the middle of the afternoon on the unceded territory of the Meskwaki and Olutomi nations. And I'm really very excited to be included in this volume and very happy to be here at its launch. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gibson.
Okay, I'm Olutomi Kassim. I'm a PhD researcher at UCA University for the Creative Arts in the home counties, mainly in Canterbury and Farnham. I also have ad hoc teaching hours, delivery of workshops and tutoring students as well. I'm a visiting lecturer, a lecturer on sabbatical at the moment at Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria, for who, and I also wrote a module, research titled module, Staging Activism, which forms the basis of a lot of my research and my chapter in the book as well. I also teach mathematics to secondary school students, and I am an artist as well.
Yeah, Tommy, I mean, we are kind of talking academic now. Tommy's a practitioner, so maybe we could have started from there. So Tommy's also a practitioner, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Chikukwango. I'm originally born in Angola, and I'm a performance artist I'm also a scholar who do a lot of research in performance arts, mainly looking at African performance arts and the African diaspora. And currently I'm one of the teachers at St. Andrew's School, so I'm teaching in the school.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Patten, and I'm an artist myself. Started out as a dancer, storyteller, visual artist. I'm also a filmmaker, and I'm also an academic. I actually teach at Irie Dance Theatre on the BA degree course, teaching dance, but I'm also doing a lot of work at the moment with the Open University on a project called DEPA, Decolonizing Education for Peace in Africa, where we've been working in 14 countries across Africa, looking at how we can develop peace education resources from bottom up, working with the local communities, using the indigenous practices in order to develop resources that can help them to teach not only about themselves, but also to develop peace and unity within their communities from their perspective, rather than from a top-down or an outside perspective. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can clap. Mindful of our time, I'm going to skip some of the stuff I wanted to read about to introduce the book. I'll still read a bit of it, and then I've got a couple of questions that open conversations between myself and the contributors, and that's really what I'm really excited, looking forward to. So this book project started in 2019 when I was approached by Routledge to put together a book, a handbook on African theatre and performance. I took on the project then, and that was early 2019, and of course the pandemic happened. Things kind of got a bit difficult for everyone, and life. I also had some life changes, job changes in that period as well, which meant that at some point the book almost felt like it was stuck. The contributors were really very good at reminding me what's going on, can we keep moving. The people that reviewed the chapters also were quite good in getting back to me and saying, I've reviewed the chapter, can you tell us what's going on next with the project? And well, the pace was very much reduced, the pace of work was very much reduced. And at one point it felt like it was really stuck, and that was when Tiziana came on board as a postdoctoral researcher to support the project and kind of get us through that hump. So really pleased and really proud to have this book published and out in the world now. So the handbook, the Routledge Handbook on African Theatre and Performance, is both ambitious and groundbreaking, and draws on case study chapters and interviews by a wide range of international scholars and practitioners to introduce readers to what constitutes African theatre and performance in its many manifestations, both on the continent and in the African diaspora around the world. I think that this book is very Pan-African and international as well in coverage, as well as in the choice of the contributors. So I was very careful in selecting the people to contribute to the book. Most of you would have perhaps at one point or another come up with this thing about, particularly in African theatre scholarship, the dominance of Nigeria within that kind of space. So I was very careful and mindful that I didn't want this book to be about Nigerian theatre. I didn't want this book to be about West African theatre. I wanted it to be genuinely African theatre. At the same time, also, when we talk about African theatre scholarship sometimes, often actually we're talking about sub-Saharan African theatre scholarship, because North Africa is often not represented. The Lusophone Africa, Portuguese-speaking Africa, often not, see them in scholarship. French-speaking to an extent. So I was very careful, very mindful that I wanted to make sure that I include voices from North Africa, from East Africa, from all parts of Africa, really. So I took on the challenge. So it's really Pan-African project. But the contributors are also not limited to Africanist academics. So that's why I wanted to point out Toby as a practitioner. So he also includes creative and practitioners who are working on the cutting edge of what African theatre and performance is. Some of them didn't contribute directly, some of them were interviewed, and their contribution reflected in the book in that way. I think there's a very fundamental imbalance in the level of scholarship, in terms of the scholarship we have about Africa generally, not just African theatre, and the kind of Western scholarship. And we know that often this is tied to capital. So this book is also an attempt to try to remedy some of that, even though one book cannot quite do that on its own. So the handbook aims to provide, to become a reference material which examines African theatre and performance in English, French speaking, Portuguese speaking, and African language speaking countries on the continent. So initially this book was conceived to be quite polyphonic, but multi-language. And the idea was that people would publish in Portuguese, would have publications in French, rather than try to make everything in English. And I don't speak any of those languages. And when I began to look at what it was going to cost to actually get expertise to support in that, which the publisher were not willing to stop on that kind of money, it became pretty easy to do that. So one disappointment I have about this book, if any, and actually it's a disappointment, is that we didn't manage to get that multi-language approach at the end of the day. So we had to, I already received papers in French and Portuguese. We had to go back again and kind of get people to rewrite or get somebody to translate. So that's one disappointment I have about the book, and I hope another book will do it, other than this book. So the volume explicitly engages with definitions of African theatre and performance. I think it's also holistic in how it tries to do that. One of the things I was very careful about was to refrain from this idea of compartmentalization that we do often, or I've seen a lot of that in African theatre scholarship, when people kind of talk about the more post-colonial or traditional, actually, talk about traditional African theatre and modern, as if they are kind of binaries and they can't exist in one. But actually, African theatre can be both traditional and both contemporary. So we try to make sure we stay away from that particular approach. So crucially, this handbook adopts a contextual and Africanist approach to definitions of African theatre performance that aligns, amongst others, to Osito Kabwe's African Theatres and Performances, which was published in 2007, where he observes that for most African cultures, a measure of what is perceived as performance is whether or not the three elements of space, performer, and spectacle are present in the activity. So this book tries to kind of come from that perspective as well. So I'm just skipping because I want to get to the conversation. So while this handbook cannot claim exhaustive coverage of the many avenues in African theatre and performance studies, it includes many representative cases and has chosen to expand its discussion to traditionally excluded contexts in North Africa, as well as neglected geographical contexts of African diasporic theatre, such as German. The volume also includes several well-established scholars, while also welcoming chapters by early career researchers. So again, that's something I was very particular I wanted to do. As well as interviews from notable figures. So for ease of consultation, the handbook has been divided into 5 parts, and the contributions are kind of split in those 5 areas. So looking at the theatre for development and social change, for instance, and we also looked at theatre spaces, theatre features, and of course post-colonial as well. Like I said at the beginning, the journey leading to this volume has been long, and while extremely rewarding, also included some sad and unexpected moments. This included the death of the Zimbabwean academic and researcher, Kene Chinywa, who died on the 19th of June 2021 after a long illness. The late Juliao had a proposal for the book that was accepted, and its title was The Rise of Theatre for Community Development in Zimbabwe, a constellation of African influences. So this was accepted for the publication, but he became too unwell to complete it. Another important chapter that did not make it into this handbook was titled Sweat and Hope and the Love of Music, Imagining New Futures on Ugandan Underground Dance Floors. Although this chapter was completed in time and had gone through all the reviews and everything, and actually was camera ready, was ready for publication, the chapter explores contemporary music scenes in Uganda, but it had to be withdrawn at the very last minute on ethical grounds by the author, Poppi's Forward. And this is because of because that was at the point when in 2023, on the 26th of May 2023, President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda signed into law the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which criminalized same-sex relationships. And this particular work, the author felt that this particular work could add to the endangerment, the further endangerment of some of the activists and artists who were involved in some of these underground performances, so had to be withdrawn. So I think those are the main things I wanted to say about the book. Just to end by saying that I think this book is going to be really influential in how we talk about African theatre. The content of this book, like I said, have been carefully and meticulously assembled. So to say that I'm proud of the handbook is just to kind of state the obvious thing here. I'm really proud of the diversity of voices, diversity of perspectives that are apparent in the book. The expert perspectives and the variety of case studies offered by the esteemed contributors underscore the value of the handbook as a prized resource for theatre historians, scholars, practitioners, and theatre enthusiasts all over the world. So it is my hope that it becomes a really important resource, an illuminating compendium and a beacon of diverse insight that enriches people's understanding and appreciation of African theatre and performance. So that's kind of my introduction. I hope you kind of got me, my voice sensitive. So this is the bit I'm really excited about. It's really talking to the contributors, trying to kind of get how they approach their chapter, but what is it about the chapter that they want to excite you about. So I'm going to start with Gibson. Gibson, I hope you can hear me. And just thinking about, thank you. So just thinking about, so Gibson's chapter is the chapter 24 in the book, and it's titled After Revivals, New Protest Theatre by a company called Born Free South Africans, not a company, Born Free South Africans. So thinking about a historical context, how do you see the legacy of protest theatre during the apartheid era influencing the new forms of theatre protest theatre by the Born Free generations? So you might want to say a little bit about kind of the chapter before you dive into that question.
Sure. So the chapter really comes out of a project that I've been working on since 2006, which is looking at the influence of the anti-apartheid theater on the post-apartheid stage. And I trace that influence through what I call future nostalgias, which are longings for ideas of the future that existed in the past. And I locate those ideas in the protest theater and how they are conceiving of the future. And then I trace how those imagined futures are performed in the post-apartheid era. And so the chapter really comes out of where I was a postdoc at Tshwane University of Technology in 2013, and I noticed how so many of my students were reviving these anti-apartheid plays and using them to kind of show the ruling African National Congress Party that they weren't living up to their highest ideals. And to say, here is how you imagine the future, and here is our present reality. And so then the chapter kind of moves beyond those revivals as this young generation of supposedly born free South Africans, which is the term that they're referred to as because they were born after 1994, with the official end of apartheid. And it traces two case studies looking at a performance by the Market Theatre Laboratory, which is a theater school that's tied to the Market Theatre in Johannesburg. And they're putting on a musical called Hani, the Legacy, which is a musical that delves into the life of Chris Hani, the Northern South African Communist Party leader. And it also looks at The Fall, which is a play by former University of Cape Town students about the Rhodes Must Fall movement, the efforts to remove a statue of the colonizer Cecil John Rhodes from the UCT campus. And so I look at how these students, these young South Africans, are contending with the legacy of protest theater, which has become a kind of millstone around their necks. that their parents are telling them that they have nothing to complain about. And they're saying, hey, we were promised freedom, we were promised that we were the beneficiaries of this rainbow nation, and yet we can't afford our school books, and we can't afford our education. And in the case of Hani, the legacy, they're looking at, here's this radical communist leader, and what might have happened had he lived, and what future might we be able to enjoy if his ideas had prevailed in South Africa, rather than the kind of neoliberal ruling party that the ANC transitioned into. And so that's really the thrust of the chapter, is to look at these new plays and how they are contending with this legacy of protest theater, and also updating the models of protest theater that are available to them, and adding things like decolonization and feminism, and sort of speaking to the past and to the present in the same moment.
Thank you so much, Gibson. I'm just going to move around everyone once that we can open up to much more fluid conversations. So thank you very much for that. So the next chapter in the book is actually by Olutomi here, and it's titled "Performed Activism as a Vehicle for Social Change in Nigeria." So Tommy, do you mind telling us a bit about the chapter, and then kind of zero in on this idea of the conceptual framework? But can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by performed activism in the context of Nigerian theatre?
Okay, so to give some context, the chapter was inspired by my PhD research that I have spent many years researching prior to starting the programme. I have been thinking a lot about what I can do as a dual citizen Nigerian to help raise awareness and make impact policy decision making, so that Nigeria's systemic issues and the existential issues can begin to be resolved. So I've embarked on a PhD program titled Staged Activism and its Potential for Social Amelioration, specifically with Nigeria as a case study. Staged activism to me, in the time that we live in now, 2024, means the type of work that I'm doing in collaboration with other artists and academics, which is some of the terms that I reference when I talk about the staged activism that I'm involved in at the moment. I think of terms such as decolonisation as a central theme, because many of Nigeria's problems stem from the fact that Nigeria was once a colony. The management ethos is definitely a outshoot of what happened in how the Nigeria was managed as a colony. That's unfortunate, but it still persists. And that brings me to a term, prebendalism, which, if in case anybody is not aware of what the term means, it is the process of pilfering the resources and the money and everything that is good and resourceful about Nigeria, mismanaging it and using it for one's personal gain, and also disseminating it to relatives, friends and associates, which has been the way that Nigeria has been run since it was handed back to Nigerians in 1960. That's really unfortunate. The forerunners of staged activism were definitely Fela Kuti comes to mind. I'm not sure if anybody has heard of a contemporary artist who's still alive at the moment, Juliao. I know him personally, and I've actually interviewed him and worked with him as well. He's had to endure many arrests and even imprisonment in the course of his activist work, simply for stating the facts about the systemic issues in Nigeria and trying to